All right, so one question to answer is, was the scientific revolution really a revolution and why? Now, first, before we dive into the scientific revolution, and if it was a revolution, first we have to look into what is a revolution. Revolution, to most Americans, when they think about it, they probably look at the American Revolution. Now, certainly, it's something different that changes, but a revolution doesn't necessarily have to be military based or any sort of conflict. A revolution is basically just a change in the way of thinking, an exchange of an idea that changes everything in the way people think about it or how things are done. So it can be a military revolution, it could be a social revolution, it could be an agricultural revolution. It basically changes everything that one does within that particular topic. But revolution typically is a very quick and rapid pace. And that's the key with this question here. With the scientific revolution, looking at the scientific revolution, there's a lot of different ideas being spread about. Certainly, with how the universe is made up, the place of God, these sort of questions are going to be tried to be answered from this point onward, even to this day. Um, so, what the scientific revolution does is it changes how people look at their place in the universe, God's place in the universe, and certainly science and how to discover science and the world around them. This basically changes everything. Certainly, prior to this point, religion was a primary factor in motivation in a lot of people's lives. They went to church, they gave alms to the poor, they donated to the church, they lived their lives around the church. And with the scientific revolution, that's going to change things to where people start asking questions. Is the church really an important factor in our lives? Now, many of the scientists believed in God and they had no intention to basically disrupt religion and call into question whether or not God exists. But that's going to come much later. Now, I think pretty much established the change of ideas that are going to go on with the scientific revolution. But just to go into it a little bit more before we move on, we have the discovery of circular motions of planets, and or rather elliptical motions of planets. Actually, it's kind of a oval elliptical pattern. What was typically thought previously was that the circle was the perfect form, and so everything revolved around in the universe in a circle format. That was going to be proved wrong eventually through the efforts of Kepler, Galileo, um, Copernicus, many of these others, and then eventually Newton. So that's kind of disproved there. You also have, for example, the belief in the medieval system, and certainly the Christian system at this time, was that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around the Earth because this was the most important place in the universe because God had created man. This was the place of God, and therefore it was the center of the universe. And then the stars and the planets were crystal, as they are supposed to be the most perfect places, but also they saw the stars as being the place of heaven. Um, this is all going to be thrown on top of itself by the time we get to Galileo and then Newton, and the fact that they see with their own eyes that the moon, for example, is not crystal, and many of these other planets are not crystal, and you have the sun actually being the center of the universe, and the planets, including the Earth, is revolving around the sun. So that really throws this idea completely off because now, well, the church has been telling us all these things and this is what we've been taught. Well, what else does the church know that may potentially be wrong? And so that causes people to think and try to investigate and discover the truth. And this moves into this idea of finding out logic. So this is how everyone is kind of coming around to basically changing how they think of the universe they live in, the role of the church, and a lot of lords and nobles and secular individuals are going to take this and use it as ammunition to basically downgrade the influence of the church. Now, these people have a motivation to do that because the kings want to be have more importance, more influence than the church. They may be able to gain more profits and have more power eventually. So that's the revolution part. But is it quick? Is it fast? Well, over a series of about 100 years or so, that's when all these ideas are exchanged, and then they start to rethink this. But who does this actually affect? Now, the upper class individuals are going to be ones who actually are able to read and write. So they're going to be ones who are reading about these scientific discoveries, about how the Earth revolves around the sun, or it is on its own. Eventually, more and more people are going to come to an agreement that the sun is the center of the universe. So the upper class are going to be ones who really are impacted by this the most because they can actually read this for themselves. The basically everybody else, the poor, aren't going to be affected nearly as much. Now they're going to hear rumors and they're going to be told that this is what's going on, and so they are going to eventually come away from this. But certainly the scientific revolution is a revolution first to the nobles, and eventually it is going to be with the rest of the population. It is going to be a gradual process. So we're talking a couple hundred years is the process here. So by the 1700s, certainly by the late 1700s to the 1800s, it's going to have taken hold. Is this quick? Well, in terms of history, yes, it's fairly quick. So we can actually identify the scientific revolution as probably being a genuine revolution. It changes at least Europeans' point of view. Now, keep in mind, this isn't going to affect, for example, the Chinese, the Japanese, or any other groups out in the world. So this is going to be affecting Western civilization, not an Eastern civilization or any other civilization you can think of. So we really have to look at who this is impacting to answer this question. As far as it being quick, 100 years, that's pretty quick as far as history is concerned and changing how people think. If it was something that would be maybe 500 years or 1,000 years, then we might say this is not a revolution, but maybe an evolution of some sorts. So hopefully I cleared that up a little bit, and whether or not it is a revolution or not. Generally, we can call this a genuine scientific revolution because it does change everything very, very quickly.